I'm Davis, a man who died at the age of 25, but wasn't buried until I was 70. On my way to work that day, my wife, Julia, complained that the refrigerator at home had been broken for 2 weeks and no one had fixed it. In fact, she had already complained about it many times at home, but I simply didn't care. Actually, I didn't even know about it at all. Facing my wife's blame, I still didn't show any emotion. I just smiled indifferently.
She's gone.
When I woke up in the hospital, I was still a bit dazed. Looking at the bloodstains left by my wife, all of this was too sudden for me. It was so sudden that I couldn't feel any sadness. I just felt an empty feeling in my heart. So I went to the vending machine, wanting to buy something to eat. But after I paid, the chocolate suddenly got stuck, just like my life, which seemed to stop at that moment. Then I asked a hospital staff member nearby, and the other person directly said that the vending machine wasn't the hospital's responsibility. Helpless, I had to take a photo of the operating company's phone number and deal with it on my own. When I got home, I opened the refrigerator. Looking at the label left by my wife saying the refrigerator was broken, I still remained indifferent. I just ate something casually and then went to sleep alone. The next morning, my parents rushed over in a hurry, wanting to accompany me through this most difficult moment, but they didn't know that I didn't feel anything at all. At my wife's funeral, I still didn't show any emotion. It was only when I saw the strange looks from the crowd that I realized I shouldn't be like this. So I went to the bathroom, trying to work up some sadness, but no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't cry. I went into the room, picked up a pen, and started writing a complaint letter to the operator. As I was writing, I unconsciously started talking about the past. I got up at 5:30 every morning, worked out, took a shower, and dressed myself carefully. All of this was just for the commute. There were always the same people on the subway every day. The person sitting opposite me was John, who always pulled me into small talk. He asked me what I did for a living, and I lied to him, saying that I was a mattress salesman. I also always found some excuses to avoid chatting with him, because, for me, having a conversation with others was a terrifying thing. In fact, my real job was an investment broker, and the company I worked for handled up to $6 billion in funds. My father-in-law was one of the shareholders. I met my wife at a party. Her job was to help underprivileged children. On that night, we had a relationship and got married quickly. However, my father-in-law told me more than once that he didn't like me, but I simply didn't care because I didn't really know my wife at all, and I didn't even know if I liked her or not. I didn't know why I was writing all these things, and I didn't even know why I was writing the letter. Just as I was folding the letter, my father-in-law came in. This seemed to be the first time he cared about me. Hearing my father-in-law's concern, I walked away without saying a word. But unexpectedly, this letter written on a whim would save me one day, saving my broken life. The next day, I got up at 5:30 as usual, washed up, worked out, and went to work. When I arrived at the company, my appearance surprised everyone.
I didn't think you were coming in today. They said you weren't. I am so sorry, Davis.
Thank you, Amy. Facing my plain answers, my assistant was at a loss, and I also gave instructions on work as usual. When I went to the meeting room, everyone looked at me with strange eyes. After my father-in-law learned that I came to work, he decided to have a talk with me.
You know, cocktails run about $18 a pop here. I don't get it. We haven't really talked, Davis, but since everything. I love Julia so much. As father's love. Man loses his wife, he's a widower. Child loses a parent. They're an orphan. But losing a child. There's no word for this. And it shouldn't be. But you and I have to continue on.
Facing my father-in-law's comfort, I talked about irrelevant topics instead. It seemed that I didn't care at all about the news of my wife's death. When I got home, I wrote another complaint letter, writing about my recent cumbersome life. On my way to work, I took the initiative to talk to John.
I'm in finance. I don't know why I told you that I worked in the mattress business. I guess I didn't expect to see you every day for 5 years. You think I'm a dick?
It turned out that we hadn't talked for a long time. I don't know why, but I really wanted to confide in John.
I didn't love my wife. I know it's sad to say, but Now that she's gone, I don't even feel sad or pain or hurt.
But what do you feel?
I couldn't tell you why I did it.
So that's when you pulled.
Maybe because I was finally being honest.
Yes.
Police learned that my wife had just passed away. They let me go. The next afternoon, my parents went home, and I stayed at the airport for 2 hours. I was overwhelmed by curiosity. For some unknown reason, I wanted to open everyone's suitcases and see what was inside. I imagined myself as a soldier on guard duty. After my parents left, I still got up at 5:30. I began to notice things that I had never noticed before. The figure of my wife in the mirror, the long hair of my wife on the comm. This was the third letter I wrote. When I arrived at the company, I thought of the broken refrigerator at home. At that moment, I couldn't wait to fix the refrigerator, but in fact, I didn't know anything about repairs at all. But Phil said it himself. If you want to fix something,
You have to take everything apart.
and figure out what's important. But in the end, I couldn't find the key to the repair and failed to fix the refrigerator. Just then, the phone rang. The person on the other end of the phone said that she was from the customer service department of the vending machine. At that moment, I seemed to have grasped a life-saving straw. I wanted to confide everything to her. Maybe Karen thought it was a bit presumptuous, so she hung up the phone in a hurry. In the evening, Karen called again. I immediately got up and left, leaving my father-in-law and mother-in-law looking puzzled. I went to Karen's favorite restaurant and described Karen's appearance to the waiter, but in her eyes, I was like a fool. Just then, Karen called me again. She said she was in the parking lot. However, when I proposed to meet her, she drove away directly. I only vaguely saw a blonde woman. The next day, my father-in-law came to my office and was puzzled by the computer that I had taken apart. At that time, I had already arrived at Karen's company. I asked about Karen's whereabouts, but her boss said that if there was any problem, I could talk to him. I refused his kindness. I didn't know how to open my mouth to him. When I got home, Karen called. She told me that she had a 15-year-old son who looked like he was 12 and acted like he was 21. Then she told me that I shouldn't have gone to her office to look for her, which was very dangerous, but I didn't understand why it was dangerous. I was on the train today, and I saw a woman staring at me. But in the face of the woman in front of me, I wanted to confide my life to her. When I wanted to ask her name, she left very quickly. That's right, this woman was Karen. I found her address with the magazine she left behind. So I went to her house, but her boyfriend opened the door.
What are you doing here?
I'm here to see Karen Reno. What are you doing here?
What am I doing here? What the fuck you want?
You don't have to swear, Carl. I told you I had a customer service issue.
Wait, it's okay. What?
She began to regret her curiosity and regretted following me, but I just wanted to hand her the last letter, personally. The next day, my father-in-law told me that he thought I was a bit strange, so he stopped all the projects in my hands. On my way home, I saw a construction team demolishing a house, so I took out all my money and wanted to help them with the demolition. They looked at me in surprise, as if they wanted to see through me and figure out what I really wanted to do. Just like that, I used all my strength and struck one hammer after another. At that moment, I felt extremely exhilarated. In the evening, Karen came directly to my house. She didn't understand why I couldn't get over it. I was living in a big house that everyone envied and my life was worry-free. Then she took me to her house.
This is all I can handle.
That's fine.
Let's just fall asleep together.
Together?
Together apart.
Just like that, we spent the night peacefully. The next morning, Chris came up to me and asked if I had slept with her mother. He also said that she was a bit crazy and was using illegal drugs. As he said these things, Chris was full of swear words. Having tasted the sweetness, I quickly packed everything up when I got home and decided to leave this home. When we got to the beach, I suddenly mentioned my wife to her.
Julia loved the ocean. We used to spend our summers at her folks' place in East Hampton. That's where she wanted to be.
You miss her?
I didn't know how to answer her. When I got home and took a shower, I saw my wife in the mirror again. At that moment, a huge wave of sadness welled up in my heart. Feeling at a loss, I went to the hospital for an examination, but the results showed that I was perfectly normal. But only I knew that a part of my heart was missing, a part that had been eaten away by the poisonous moth. So I went to the construction team again and continued with the demolition work. A nail pierced into my foot, making me cry out in pain. Then I felt extremely exhilarated again. So this was what pain felt like. In the evening, when I got back to Karen's house, although she was sitting right next to me, the way I expressed myself to her was still by writing a letter. Then we built a tent with a sofa, and I talked to her about my childhood.
What was the most important thing to you?
Running fast.
We used to race on blacktop at recess, and then I was always so slow. Just once I wanted to beat them all and blow them all away. Have them cheer for me and not Rick Ross them in her. I went to the bathroom and saw Chris holding a gun, so I took him into the woods. I loaded the bullets and let Chris shoot to his heart's content. But he thought it wasn't that interesting and that he should shoot something. Then I remembered that there was a bulletproof vest in the car, so I put on the bulletproof vest and let Chris shoot at me. When I arrived at the company, my father-in-law was interviewing candidates for the foundation. But my contemptuous and indifferent attitude made him very angry because that was his daughter's thing. He told me that if I couldn't make a decision, it would be the end between us. Then I took Chris to the supermarket and bought the hammer that could destroy everything until I found the core that could be reassembled. I took him home and we dismantled my marriage together. I picked up the hammer and smashed all the places full of memories, one hammer after another, until there was only a pile of parts left. But even after demolishing all of this, I still felt extremely sad and lonely. Chris pulled the corners of my mouth into a smile. Just then, the station wagon that had been following me appeared again.
Who the fuck drives a station wagon?
Then I bought a bulldozer and wanted to demolish the whole house. But when I pushed down one wall, the bulldozer stopped working. Then I took the hammer and went to the bedroom. Looking at the dressing table in front of me, my body couldn't be controlled. It was only when I saw a report that I stopped. This was my wife's ultrasound report. Looking at this report, I was very angry. I was angry that I didn't know my wife was pregnant at all. Then I took Karen to a party. But when my father-in-law saw me coming back with a woman, without giving me any chance, he pushed me against the wall and scolded me fiercely. Maybe from the very beginning, my father-in-law had never thought highly of me.
Did she tell you she was pregnant? Last year. Did you know? Why didn't she tell me?
You want to know why? It wasn't yours.
On the way back, I thought about my wife's appearance over and over again, and I felt what heartache was. Then I went to my wife's grave. At that time, a man walked towards me with flowers in his hand. I thought he was the man my wife was having an affair with. When he repented, I realized that he was the driver who had hit and killed my wife. And I got back to the car and found my wife's note. Memories of the past kept flashing through my mind. I finally felt the pain of losing my wife. I finally realized that I had always loved Julia deeply, but I had been living a numb life and had never cherished her love for me. So I found my father-in-law and explained everything to him. My father-in-law forgave me when he saw my sad look. From then on, my alarm didn't go off at the heartless 5:30 anymore, but at 7:30.